welcome to the Nicholas County Board of Education regular meeting, Monday, October 2nd, 2023. And at this time, if you'll stand for a moment of silent reflection. Thank you very much. Please join the board with the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, number 3 was scratched. It was left on there by accident, so it's not going to happen. So number 4, approval of the agenda. Everybody okay with that?
We have, there's going to be some personnel alterations made in the personnel section, very minor, a lot less than what we've been having. And I would like for the board to ask for an executive session on a personnel issue after number 14, so just before adjournment, that way everybody don't have to hang around. There's not going to be decisions made in this executive session, but I need to bring you up to date on a little legal situation.
Okay.
That's the only changes I have.
All right. And next we have a student representative, Miss Bailey Jarrett from Richwood High School.
Good evening, everybody. So first, I'm going to bring you up to date about Richwood High School. First about the athletics, our football team had a game last Friday and we only lost by 1, which is pretty good for us. The cross country team had a meet on Saturday, and the band had 2 competitions on Saturday. One at Parkersburg South High School, where the majorettes got 1st place, the band got 2nd place, the drum major got 2nd place. We also won People's Choice, and the percussion and color guard got 3rd place. At Parkersburg High School, the majorettes got 1st place, and the band, visual, and music got 2nd place. Next up, we have Homecoming Spirit Week coming up. So our Homecoming Week, today was PJ Day, which was really nice, and then tomorrow is Tropical Tuesday. Wednesday is Western Wednesday, and Thursday is Ken versus Barbie. And Friday is orange and black for school spirit and school colors. Our theme is There's No Place Like Homecoming, a night in Emerald City. So that's super exciting, like Wizard of Oz themed. Our dance is tomorrow at St. Luke's from 8 to 10. And then our homecoming game is on Friday with a homecoming parade, and we're going to have floats for all of our classes, and the band's going to go through. And we're going to be crowning the queen that night, so that's super exciting. That's about all we got going on. We also have our National Honor Society, who has been helping with the middle school for the Get of Life program. We are also judging the literature fair at Panther Creek Elementary coming up tomorrow, I think. And then we are also volunteering at Heritage Day. So that's super exciting. That's pretty much all we got going on.
Thank you.
Great job. Thank you.
Great job as usual. Okay, number 6, superintendent's information and updates.
Well, usually I start off my report with our construction updates. We did our survey through the month of September to allow people to voice their opinions on the 3 choices that's been presented. And that window closed on September 30th. And Larissa Nortz, our FEMA attorney, is gathering that information together and preparing that for publication. FEMA wanted us to go through that month with all the comments before we made a final decision on which choice we wanted to make. And we do want the public to know that we've read all of these. We'll continue looking over these comments. The only bad thing about a survey is when you see a comment made, you don't have any way of responding to that person. And some of the stuff was just, some of it was very legitimate, but some things were just not really accurate. They didn't really understand what we were trying to accomplish. And that happens when you have a survey like that, especially when they're anonymous. But anyway, we're going to, I want to ask the board to consider a work session next week, hopefully on the 12th of October if possible. We have to have a student expulsion that day, so our attorney will be on the premises to help us with that. And rather than to bring board members over here 2 different times next week, we thought we'd try to do it in one. So we would schedule the expulsion hearing at 8 o'clock on the 12th, immediately followed by the work session. The work session could go, you don't know the length of what that's allowed to entail. The next thing is Sarah Lawson started today as our professional accountant. She's not here, but we were tickled to death to see her walk through the door. And then when she got here, we refused to let her leave because we really need her in this position. And she and Christian will make a fabulous team. And so we're happy to invite Sarah onto our team. Mrs. Weitzel and I had a meeting with Dr. Bonnie Copenhaver of the New River Community and Technical College last week. And we're seeking to enhance our partnership with New River Community College since it's local and try to provide more offerings to our students. We'll be bringing an MOU to the board for consideration probably on the October 16th meeting. It'll be for the 24-25 school year. The areas we plan to explore first are to enhance our STEM program, our LPN program, and criminal justice program. So those are the things we're looking at expanding as far as our working relationship with New River Community and Technical College. I had my conferences with my directors last Monday, and we set our goals for this year, what we're trying to accomplish. And one of the things I'm emphasizing to them the importance of, especially the directors that deal in instruction, are to be in the schools and visit classrooms. And I'm asking them to provide me the names of the teachers that they actually observe and visit with, because we want to cover as many teachers as we can and get in their classrooms. And they have been very welcoming to us. I went into several classrooms last week, and everywhere I went, I mean, the kids were great, and the teachers were happy to see us. And so we're off to a good start with that. I want to give a shout out to some RHS students. I was at the Pocahontas County Richwood game Friday a week ago. And in Pocahontas County, they lost their band director. He decided to do something else. They couldn't find anybody to do band. So we have 2 math teachers who know about as much about band directing as I do, trying to help those kids keep their band together. They only have 6 or 7, 8 kids in the band. And they were trying their best, but they were struggling. And some of our kids from Richwood High School went across the field to sit with them and cheer them on. And even invited them, they said, you can come and play with our band. I don't know if Mr. James would appreciate that, but I just thought it was great of our kids to do that, to reach out a hand of support to the Pocahontas County High School band. Last week, we continue to have phone issues. It's not just a school issue, it's all over the county. But we just want to make sure the public knows we are not ignoring your phone calls. A lot of times people say they're calling, the phones aren't even ringing. When they ring, we answer them. But I just wanted to make sure the public knows we're not ignoring their phone calls. It's just we're having problems in several of our schools last week, and the office was down for off and on all week. I have passed out to the board members, this is not for anything other than your information. They sent us an update on the COVID-19 protocols on what we need to do, because that was a big deal a couple years ago. We still have some COVID in our community and in our schools, but this is just an updated version of how they want us to follow those guidelines. And so I provided you all a copy of that. The last thing I have is I've asked Mr. Henshaw if he would come up. It's kind of a precursor to what Kristen's going to talk about when she gets to finance. But Chris is going to talk to us about our enrollment numbers at this present time.
I've dropped it. You'll see there's an enrollment in your board packet. I waited till today to make that because I wanted today's numbers for that. I'm going to share that with you, Mr. Green, in just 1 second, as soon as I find my team here. If I can make this thing work. So if you look at the first page, I just want to go over, we do have, Mr. Ferguson is new, hasn't seen how school enrollment works before. You have two numbers. You're going to see one called head count. So that's your total, that's head count. That's how many seats occupy chairs, okay? But that's not what we get paid by. We get paid by what's called FTE, full-time enrollment. So you're going to see that number. Your FTE in grade schools is always less than your head count because you'll have some 3-year-olds or 4-year-olds enrolled and they just receive services. So they'll count as a head count, but we're only going to get paid for 0.2, 0.1, 0.25, whatever it is. That's all we'll get paid for those services. So I've listed them all there by grade. And remember, these, and I've compared them at the bottom. This is kind of how they look from last year. So you'll see, like, Summersville Elementary is 22 kids less in the 5th grade than they was last year. That doesn't mean 22 kids said, I'm done with this school, I'm out. What that means is the 4th grade class was 22 kids smaller, or some kids moved. So you can see trends that way. So you can see that we haven't grown in many areas. Cherry River has picked up four kids, and Birch River picked up 1 kid. Richwood Middle School's picked up 2 kids. That's, everybody else has lost kids. So I broke it down by percentage as well too, because when you look at 18 from 33 from Richwood High School, from Nicholas County High School, is less percentage-wise than Richwood High School. So it lets you see how much of the percentage the school has shrank or grown. I just felt like the board might like to know that percentage. But as of right now, and this is going to get adjusted. Remember, this is all preliminary. So we may be 10 or 20 kids different. As of right now, before I came in here and did this, we're 119 kids less than last year. So what can we attribute that to? Homeschool kids, Hope Scholarship. I would bet half of those kids are Hope Scholarship kids. At least half of those kids are Hope Scholarship kids.
What schools in the county can they go to? I know New Life, they came with the Hope Scholarship.
The Seventh-day Adventists. Basically any that has any.
Can they go county and the public school system too? Under the Hope?
No.
Okay. So
No, that's just a transfer. Like, that wouldn't be Hope Scholarship. Public schools does not take Hope Scholarship funds. That's just,
Okay.
we'll get paid through the normal formula for that.
Okay.
So could they go to a private school in Fayette County? Yeah, a Catholic school or whatever? Yes, they can. Can they go to an online school? Yes, they can. Keep in mind, and what I've been told, and Kristen can tell me if I'm wrong, or Lydia, but these, the parents don't get the $6,000 or whatever that is. It has to go to the facility that they're enrolled in. But I would say half these kids are Hope Scholarship kids. So it's just people who chose to go to a non-public school. So what does that equate to? I think this number, when it's all said and done, is going to be like really 120 something. Because remember, this is the first day. This is October 2nd. This is the first day to make corrections. We're going to have corrections. We're going to have calls from other counties saying, I had this kid enrolled, that's going to change. But right now, I think you're looking to the tune of about a $900,000. So Kristen, used to be $6,000 a kid. Kristen says it's more like $7,400 a kid now. This is at $7,000 a kid. So next year's budget's going to have to shrink almost $1 million to make up for those kids that we don't have anymore. So,
Kristen, can you enlarge that or?
yeah.
I can't find that actually in my thing. You say you did send it over?
I did. It's in your board packet. It's a comparison. It's called comparison.
There,
Not let me scroll down for some.
up top.
Use both fingers.
There it is.
Oh, you're on 9-5 board meeting. Let's get in the right board meeting here.
That's what I had.
Into the top. Right there. Okay. Yep. Files.
What's the number? October 1st.
First comparison. Got it.
I had to refresh mine, Chris.
Oh, did you?
Yeah, that's how I downloaded it. So that I can preview it. I downloaded this, but if it came out later today, I did that about 6:30 this
Right,
morning.
and so there's,
This first one.
Okay, came out later.
so the top page is your raw numbers.
Yep.
The bottom page is your analytics. So, remember, that might change some, but
You did that at 7,000?
I did that at 7,000. So that might, like I said, the FTE will change, it might be 120 by the time we're done. So you might sway $100,000 cheaper, but still yet, $100,000 cheaper is still a lot of money. But that's the preliminary. All this October enrollment stuff doesn't even get completed and submitted to the state till the end of this month. That's when the superintendent has to do it. I'll take care of that usually for him. And then the state goes over it and they send Kristen the real results of what they'll be. This is, remember, this is next year's funding. This is not this year's funding. And I've also, past boards have been curious of how many kids, what percentage of the Richwood Middle School sixth graders came from Panther Creek and Gully River. So, right now where the school is in Craigsville, 60% of, if you total Cherry River, Panther Creek, Gully River, all of their last year's fifth grade students, 60% of those three schools, which really the number is like 100% of Cherry River's kids, and then probably 50 or the high 40s percentage of Gully River and Panther Creek kids make up Richwood Middle School sixth grade class this year. And the year before that was 70% and 55. It was trending way down and staying around 40% until the school moved to Craigsville. When Richwood Middle School went to Craigsville, that's when you saw that higher percentage because a lot more of the Gully River kids are being maintained, are staying right there in their hometown. So I think, and what you can also do if you're curious about future population, go ahead and you can start plugging classes forward. Okay, so if you maintain that 60% next year, because Richwood Middle's always been a predictor, but over the next 2 years, you're going to see Richwood Middle will lose about 50 kids in 2 years. But what you can do is just grab these class sizes, and they don't change a whole lot. You never know about kindergarten, but typically the class size doesn't change from kindergarten up. So, you know, if you want to look at Cherry River, you know, they're only going to, you don't know what's coming in as kindergarten, but you're going to have one more kid in fifth grade than you had this year. So, but when you look at like Richwood High School, see next year, Richwood High School has got a 86 moving out and a 79 moving in. Okay, and the year after that, you've got a 92 moving out, a 90 moving in. The year after that, you've got a 77 moving out and a 62 moving in. And I calculated the next 2 years is going to be in the 60s. So within the next 2 years, you're going to trade an 86 and a 92 for class sizes in the 60s. So you can play with those numbers and move them forward, and it's a really good predictor. Like I can show you where I predicted these class sizes when we first started building, and there was, I think, 3 kids different in 5 years. But like I said, this is preliminary.
Anybody have any questions?
Thank you, Chris. That's all I have.
Okay. Do we have any delegations?
No, sir.
Thank you. Number 8, we don't have anything under discussion or presentation, so we'll go to number 9. Action items. Discussion with possible action on Richwood High School commemorative park walking trail. Mr. Green, has anyone, or Mr. Moose, have they reached out?
No. Mr. Green has most information on that, I would say.
I haven't been around long enough to reach out to anybody in town anyway, so I have nothing there.
Okay,
Do on that.
well, it says possible action, so is there any discussion on that? I mean, we're willing to give it to one of the, someone in the community that has a
But nonprofits.
nonprofit.
We discussed this a little bit in a staff meeting this morning, and I talked to Alan and Christian both about this. And if either one of you would like to share your thoughts on this walking trail and how it would be beneficial to us or detrimental to us or whatever, any thoughts at all? Any preferences?
The only thing that I had mentioned was, so far, everything that we've done for that park is going to be reimbursed by FEMA, so we're not going to have any cost in that. So, I mean, now the time is if we are going to be putting out trash cans and we're going to be sending our people to empty the trash and to do maintenance, and that's going to be an increased cost to us. And right now, we really don't have any money that's going to be in that because we're going to get everything reimbursed up till now. So anything that we do further is on us. And also, I don't know from a liability standpoint, I don't know if that's someplace where, maybe people might get into trouble, people might do that shouldn't be after, I don't know. Those are just some things to think about.
Mr. Stunt, do you have any?
I'll be honest, I'm really torn on this. Our guy over there, I mean, he is stretched in, I think, with what, we've really tried to do we've really tried to turn those facilities around over there, and we've really tried to make some ground with it. And, I think the Dean Memorial Field and Red Gym, I think they look better than they have in a really long time right now, because we have really tried to focus on that. With that being said, so I don't know how much extra that field really puts as far as work-wise, how much work that really puts on us. Whether it's ours or not, I'm just going to be honest with you, we're probably going to have to maintain it. It is my guess, because if it goes unmowed, if there's trash all over it, I think people are still going to look at us as, why aren't you all taking care of it? Because it's right it's adjacent to our property. I guarantee football games, people are still going to be parking there. People are still going to be cutting across it, coming to any events that we have there. I do worry. I know there are some concerns about, as far as parking for football, what happens with that plaza if it changes hands, and we can't park there for events anymore. I'm not saying that may be a long shot. I just feel like no matter what direction we go, we're going to end up maintaining it anyways. That's kind of.
If you give it to a nonprofit though, and put the stipulation in there that they put a sign up that this park is such and such a nonprofit maintained by, I think we can get rid of that person.
Yeah.
I mean, but I understand what you're saying, but the signage would be important. If you just leave it like it is, then people are going to assume it's the board. So signage would be very important.
When we had our discussion this morning, Chris, you was involved in that. Share your thoughts too, because, we all of us have a kind of different look at this, and Chris, share your thoughts of what you shared with us.
For me, I feel like if we give it away, we can still help maintain it if we have to. But then it's not our responsibility. Because that is a green zone, that was in the agreement, and that FEMA agreement, where this old schools used to be, you're not allowed to pave it, it's in the floodway. So that's why that walking trail is supposed to be bigger. They had it going all the way down around the curve, but it was in the floodway, and we wasn't allowed to put pavement or gravel or any of those things in that floodway. So that always has to be a green zone forever. So we can't pave it for parking or gravel or anything. So So, but we can park there in the grass. I agree with that. But I think whoever gets it needs to know that always, by federal requirements, has to be green zone. You're not allowed to develop that. For me, I feel like it's just more work for us that if somebody vandalizes that park, we're going to be expected to fix it. And that was pretty expensive. It could get expensive for me. I just think it's a future cost.
If somebody else owns it, we're not liable for it.
Right.
We couldn't get sued on anything that happened there, even though we might keep it looking good.
That's why, I mean, I understand that Alan's completely right. You know, we don't want that to be an eyesore. He's worked hard in the stadium, the new fence, it looks amazing. We don't want that. And so with my thoughts is, if we have to help maintain it a little bit, we're still not liable for it or required to.
I'm not so sure you'd have, I mean, I get what you're saying, but there's foundations out there, money out there that I think we may be selling to people at Richwood, who, depending on who wants to step up and take it, we may be selling them a little bit short. I think they'll take a lot of pride in maintaining it. And there is foundation money out there for those type of projects. There's all kinds, and you know, you've got to write a grant for it and do it. Keep it off the board expenses and responsibility. It's not too soon.
How's that maintenance guy getting along? He seemed like he was pretty much overwhelmed. Had more to do than he could do. Apparently he takes care of the football field and that field and the red gym and everything. Just one guy.
He
doesn't mow that walking track area, right?
He does mow it, yeah, he
Oh,
mows
does
it
he?
also.
You switched it over to him?
Well, yeah, because originally he mowed, that position mowed went up and mowed baseball fields. And so I took the baseball fields off of that position and put that on our mowing crew.
I got you.
And then, that way he's not mowing in two really far apart locations. I put that closer so that he wouldn't have to load up a mower and take it all the way down to the baseball fields.
I don't think they'd want that paved under any circumstances because they use it for practice and they have to use all the practice fields, football field, everything there to accommodate all the different sports that are practiced there and played there.
Well, I mean, my other concern, I mean, it is the parking because if you go to a football game, if they get any kind of attendance, they do park all through that grassy area. And I'm not saying whatever happened, but what happens if you do give it to a nonprofit? At that point, you don't have control. Maybe they do put something up and say, oh, nobody's parking here, you can't park here. The plaza goes into different ownership, and they say, you all can't park here either. Then where does that leave us as far as parking?
At least on that plaza is good for about another 10 years.
Is it another 10? Someone had told me they thought it was coming up
9, 10.
soon.
And that is possible. I mean, we pay Memorial Park, what, $5,000 a year to park there every year. So I don't know, maybe a nonprofit would start charging us. I don't know. I mean,
Well,
there is a lot to think about. And whatever you all do, we'll go that direction.
I think it comes down if you feel you have a use for it, because you got a park and the school needs it. You know, they need it for the practices, like you said, and the school board should control it. If you don't have the need for it, then you get rid of the liability. Well, I shouldn't say it that way, but you try to not expose the board out in the cost and stuff and see if you can get a nonprofit. So if the board has a need for it, I mean, it's a whole different story. That's the question. The question does, you know, the school kids, and do they need that for practice? I need to go over there. I know exactly what you're talking about, but I need to go there and look. And I know where they park, and I know what you're talking about in the games over there. But,
I don't know, that was the point I made this morning is, I mean, I guess you can put a clause in it or reverse back if certain things happen, but once you give it away, it's gone.
And you don't have any control whatsoever.
Right. I mean, that's my only concern. I mean, or that's not the only, but that's one of
What
them.
kind of expense you think
Yeah,
we're talking about to maintain it, grass? I mean,
Honestly, just probably the mowing. The mowing's the biggest expense. And then basically just picking up trash. I don't know that there's gonna be a lot of expense in actual maintenance unless there is like vandalism or
but it's not gravel, right? It's grass.
it's grass and then the track's asphalt.
Okay, so they park up in the grass?
They do. And we would have to do, I would say this is something we talked about long before this discussion started really coming back up, was we had talked about putting up some kind of makeshift fence or, remember the green, pointed out he had some rock, something to keep people from driving out onto the track. We had looked at, but you're looking at pretty minimal expense in putting, we were looking at doing 4x4 posts with rope through it.
You're gonna have something, because I was over there the other evening, they were driving down the track.
Yeah, I mean, it's.
They get on the track with their vehicles, that's not gonna hold up.
well, the thing with,
I've never seen anybody park on the track or at any of the events that I've attended.
That's what I've heard. I know they definitely park like down in the grass leading up to the track, and they've always parked through there. And I don't think there's any reason to try to stop them from parking there necessarily.
But it could, it could be easily vandalized. That happens.
Well, I've seen them drive across the track, they park on the other side of the track. So I've seen them drive across it back and forth, so
Park, yeah.
about every game.
So there are some things we'd have to address if we do, or if you all do decide we want to.
if you put a border, if you put a border around it, whether it be rocks or fence or whatever, that's gonna add a lot to your maintenance as far as weeding.
You're right.
So,
You got what, 6 home football games? Is that when the main parking takes place?
I'd say, yeah. You got, yeah.
Or anything you put up as a
behind-
border, if you do it in a temporary way where on those Friday night games that you could release and let them park, and then, block them back off. You just have to give some thought to that, but you're not talking about usually 5 home games, 5 away, 5 home.
For high school and then whatever, middle school.
That's true.
Then they have track meets there as well.
little league games.
Little Bears.
Yeah.
or-
So they all use that for parking.
Jacks.
Yeah.
Yeah, at the Beaver complex, people were complaining because they were going off of there and into their property or approaching their property or something. And so you all just put up a little barrier there with ribbons and that took care of it.
Yeah.
And that may be, something like that may be all we need.
Well, at this time, I feel like it was discussion with possible action, and I think we need more info before we take any action. So, no, we're not.
Chip, also, is there somebody interested in taking it? That would be a key, if nobody's interested in taking it. we can't
there's-
make a decision on it.
Yeah, I know somebody's interested, but we were waiting on somebody else, so.
Okay.
We'll just put it on the back burner. We won't table it.
Just postpone.
Well, if we table it, we have to take it up next time.
Yeah, right.
So it says with possible action, so we'll just have the discussion and not take any action. Okay, next, discussion with possible action on the Masonic Cornerstone Ceremony. So I believe it was last meeting, the gentleman presented that to us, so what's your all's feelings?
Well, the architect said they do it all the time, so apparently it's not a big deal, but
Well,
I think we should go along with it.
I'm okay with it.
Yeah, it's Charlie Lau. Based upon, like you said, architects that they're talking about doing that at the new construction at Glen, that they're talking about doing.
Both of them, I think.
And the one at Cherry River.
Yeah. Any thoughts?
I don't have any objection, I don't really know that much about them, you know. I don't, I guess they have religious affiliation. I don't know if there's a problem there.
Well, do we have, anybody want to make a motion to,
I'll make a motion to allow them to put the cornerstone
with the
and perform
ceremony?
their ceremony.
Okay, we have a motion by Mr. Moose. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Ferguson. Any other discussion? All in favor? Aye. Motion carries unanimously. Okay, consent items, finance.
Can you see that, Mr. Green?
Oh, yeah, it's good.
You want me to be here, Diana, or do you want to?
No, that's okay. Okay, first thing we have is payment of current invoices, and most of those were in your packet, but then I brought in a couple of things at the last minute. Sherry's got a note on there for you. That was actually some board member travel that she had at first reimbursed, but it ended up that it got put on the P card instead, so she had to void those checks and reissue. So she's just pointing that out there. And then a check for SQP, which of course we'll hold on to that until we get reimbursement from FEMA. And then a check for Hill-Rom, which I believe was a hospital bed that Tom
Now,
put up.
is that SQP? Is that the first stage and now it has to go through all the channels?
Right, so we go ahead and have it approved by you guys so that when it finally does go through everybody, we can hurry up and get them their money. We don't have to wait for a board meeting to approve. So did you guys have any questions about any of those invoices?
What kind of library was that, is it for the grade school over here? A portable library or something? I lost my files here, I don't know.
They have, if Sarah Lee were here, she could tell us more about it. They have, I think it's kind of like a,
Like a community,
Yeah,
like
it's-
a red box.
yeah, like a red box where you can take it like a vending machine sort of for books. And she's got a couple of those in a couple of different locations.
Yeah, was it a vending machine company that set that up?
I can't remember the name of the company right now that did that, but yeah, she
The
got
kids-
quotes for those to
Kristen,
see.
the kids earn certain money to get their books. So the kids do certain things and they get rewarded, and then they're allowed to go to the vending machine and select what book they
Okay.
want.
Okay.
That's how that works. I don't know if it's a vending machine company or not. but-
Yeah, no, it's a book.
Yeah, it looks like a vending machine, but it's
Right.
books, and the kids do certain things to get the coins or whatever it is to purchase those.
Okay, yeah, so then that was, Sarah Lee, that was a Sarah Lee purchase. So,
Just, I haven't
What's
seen
the,
it.
the surfacing at the VOTEC, is that the parking lot or what?
I think that was Surfaces, I think that was computers, yeah.
Microsoft Surface computers.
Remember when Tom put a bunch of things out for bid, and one of
Yeah.
those was surfaces, computers.
Oh,
So-
okay. Okay. Wow.
Well, we had talked about the surface paving at one time.
Yeah. Well, I knew it hadn't been done when I was over there last, so I thought maybe you were.
We did do some small patching over there, but not that. Not that much.
Yeah, okay, yeah, that, book machine, is that what you were talking about, Mr. Berry? That's, that was from Global Vending? Book machine for-
Okay, I thought it had a name on it.
Yeah.
Still haven't found it.
No other questions about invoices? And our next item is supplements and transfers. Those were for the month of September. Nothing really to note about that. The 21st Century Program, that's just a continuation. We've had the 21st Century Program for a long time. That's just this year's allocation for that. Just a couple other small things. If you don't have any questions on that, we have contracts next. There are two SMS and NCHS homecoming dance at the Summersville Arena and Conference Center.
And I probably missed it, Kristen. I looked at that earlier. I haven't looked at it for a while. I looked at it when it came out. I don't remember seeing a price on that contract.
I think,
It says fees and says see attached proposal. And I couldn't find the attached proposal.
if yours is in the same order as mine.
Okay.
The Summersville Middle School is right behind this page, it says contracts, and at the bottom of that, it says total proposal, $2,070 for Summersville Middle. And then the high school,
It's $26.50 for the high school. About 400 more.
It's on this page, Mr.
yeah, I guess, they probably got a little bit different things, different.
Well, that comes out of their school money, right?
Right, yeah. They're just sending that to us because there's an agreement that needs to be signed, so.
You think we could have these pages numbered? They're all page ones, so it's hard to find.
Oh, we maybe could, when we scan them in, we could put a little handwritten 1, 2, 3. in there.
That'd help.
Mr.
Okay.
Moose, at least they're vertical where we can see them.
Yeah.
All right. So, okay, if you have no questions about that, then we'll move on to financial statements. And I'm sure you guys probably read through the whole thing, right? and had lots of fun.
Actually, I did.
Actually, I did too.
All right, well, okay, good.
Yeah.
Fun reading.
I need to read it again. This,
Didn't know what I was reading sometimes, but I read it.
I'm good with reading it all the time.
Well, I mean, it's a lot of stuff, and it's confusing, and sometimes it's hard to follow. So I'm not going to talk a whole lot about it, but I just basically wanted to say just a couple things. I want to focus on the fund statements. There's fund statements, and then there's district-wide statements. So the fund statements are pretty much cash basis. They're like a modified cash basis. And then the district-wide has a lot of other adjustments in it that kind of makes it harder to understand. There's a retirement and an OPEB liability that the state has. The state always gives us money to cover retirement and OPEB expenses, that there's this big liability out there. So on the district-wide statements, we're supposed to show our portion of this liability. So it's a liability for us, yes, but it's not something that we are having to come up with cash to pay for. So there's a lot of different adjustments like that on the district-wide statements, which makes it hard to really see a clear picture of where we are. So I think that the fund statements, which are more like a cash basis, are easier for us to look at if we're trying to see how we're doing. So that's 2 pages. That's the first 2 pages of, in the beginning of your financial statements, you have the management discussion and analysis. Then the next section is the few pages of numbers, the financial statements, and then after that is the next.
Okay,
So-
those are numbered, so what number is that?
I'm looking at, if you are looking,
it's actually.
it's the first page.
It's actually not numbered. It's after page 13, so it's 14, 15 is what's on the screen.
When I make copies, I put a blank page in the middle, but I'm not sure if that copied or not. So when you get, there's 13 pages of the MD&A, and then after that, you have
I found it.
your financial statements.
Yes.
So I'm going to look at these first 2 pages, which are the fund statements.
page?
It's after 13, go 2 more.
Yeah, it's after 13, but it's not numbered,
Go 2 more.
so it must be 14.
The total revenue is 39 million. See that? First column.
That's it.
So if you guys are all there. Okay, so we have lots of different funds. Capital Projects Fund is where we account for the new school projects. 71 is our COVID money. 65 is our school activity. 61 is our special revenue, which 61 is mostly, it's just grant awards. It's grant awards that come from the state. They could be federal or state, but they come through the state. And then 11 is our general current expense, which is basically just our county money. All of these funds, for the most part, are they're going to end up a wash, you could say. Fund 51, now that's our building project. So if we're, if we come in good on our building and we come in under budget, we should still be okay on that. If we go way over on our expense, then we're going to be in trouble there. So that's kind of separate. But Fund 71 and Fund 61, those grants, we get a grant award, we spend the money in the grant award, and then when that's done, we're done. So, if we were at the end of the road and we were on our last grant awards, these are going to come out 0. So when you look down here at the bottom and you see negatives there, it's not that it's misleading, it's just a timing issue because we spend the federal money and then we ask for reimbursement. And if we don't get the reimbursement back by the end of August, then we're not allowed to call that revenue. So it looks like maybe we're not doing so great in 61 and 71 because we haven't gotten that money. Let's see here, changing the balance. It looks like we're not doing so hot there. But we're going to get that money. It's just that we weren't allowed to call it revenue yet because of the timing of it. So that's not really, even though it looks bad, it's really not that bad. The school activity, that's just, they brought in money, they spent out money, and it just so happened that they brought in a little bit more than they spent. And that's just, I mean, they account for that separately, but we have to put it on our financial statements. And then this Fund 51, that's going to fluctuate a lot because, you know, we write out the check and we've had the expense, but it takes forever to get the reimbursement sometimes, so that's a timing issue as well. So those are important, but for the most part, you know, those are kind of going to take care of themselves. So the bigger deal is, you know, our general money, our county money that we have, and how we spend that. That was our revenues in our general current expense fund. Here's our expenses. There's our excess, but down here, our transfers in and out, and that's where we have indirect cost. If we have a federal grant, we get a percentage of what against what we have spent in the federal grant that we can use in the county for, you know, to help pay for our overhead expenses. Well, in Fund 71, which was our COVID money, we were allowed to take a much greater indirect cost percentage. So this $550,000 that was a transfer out in Fund 71 is part of this transfer in Fund 11. So because we got that money, the COVID money, we got $550,000 of indirect cost money that we were allowed to spend over here, which is great. But we're getting to the end of our COVID money. So the reason that I think that that is kind of important to mention is if you look at our net change in fund balance, that's our revenue minus our expenses, and then after our transfers in and out, that's kind of, I mean, I think that's the best indicator of how we did that year. So of this $1.4 million, $550,000 of that was because we had COVID money, and that's going to go away. So if you take that out of the equation, then, you know, maybe we didn't do so hot. And in addition to that, last year we had, I think, 8 or 9 positions in schools and a position here that were covered out of COVID money. And then during personnel season, that was supposed to have been kind of taken care of with realignments in staff, and there was supposed to have been like a net change where we were going to be able to be okay with that. Those teachers got paid for out of COVID money just because the COVID money was there to continue our, so that there wouldn't be learning loss. So we were allowed to use COVID money to cover these positions, and now we can't. So now those positions have to go back to county. So my concern is that was about $700,000 worth of positions. So if that didn't really get taken care of well during personnel season, which I mean, not saying it didn't get taken care of well, but I'm just not convinced that we were able to put that back in the budget and be able to handle those expenses. So I'm kind of worried about that. And then I'm really worried about this decrease in enrollment that we have going on. So even though $1.4 million is pretty good, I have a couple of concerns there, and I just want you to be aware that that's really not that great.
So basically what you're saying is we're going to have to cut a bunch of positions this year.
Well, I mean, I don't know. Personnel is big, but I don't know.
You can be honest with it.
Well, I don't know, and I'm not a curriculum person. I don't know. I mean, it's not for me to say you need to cut here, there, or whatever. It's just for me to say that's the position that we're in, and we probably need to do something about it. If you look back, we were in a real similar spot last year. Our change in fund balance was $1.2 million, and then in the years prior, we were at $2.3 million and $2.6 million. So, we're not doing quite as well as we had in the last few years. And, things happen and it takes a while to catch up. So, I mean, not that that's bad. I mean, that's good. You wouldn't want a huge amount of profit, if you would say, because, you want to put money into the system. You're not in it to make money. But still, it's concerning that we're going to lose this COVID money and we're going to lose enrollment. So I just want you to be aware of that now.
Well, Kevin warned us of that, when he went over. I mean, right?
Yeah.
I mean, we
talked to them.
Yeah. Well, and personnel, I mean, a lot of stuff happens. You need positions. you know, you make your budget at the beginning of the year, and then throughout the year, when you're adding, switching, I mean, things just change a lot. You might, a person might retire that made a lot of money, and then they're replaced by somebody who didn't make very much money, or a person is hired that has full coverage family insurance, which costs us like $15,000 for that person. I mean, there's lots of little changes throughout the year. But, I mean, yeah, personnel, it's a big dollar amount, and it also can fluctuate a lot. So I think we just have to be careful during personnel season that we address this.
Chris, Mr. Green can see, but he can't hear.
What's the problem?
He's gonna check it out.
I think our personnel is about 85% of the budget, I believe.
I think that's an average, I mean.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of positions that we don't have filled right now. I don't.
Here's Mr. Green. Oh, he's commissioned.
Well, I didn't do anything.
No, you didn't do anything. Make sure you don't, well, that's fine.
It was never real helpful. I was having a hard time balancing the financial statement with those fund statements. Your financial statements are on accrual basis, and the fund statements are on a cash basis.
Yeah, modified.
Yeah, that's
Cash,
good.
yeah. And which it didn't used to be that way. Back in the early days, it was just, we didn't have to do any of that district-wide. These are all like Gatsby proclamations that came out. So it
Yeah,
was.
this management letter and stuff, this isn't an outside audit firm doing this, but it's the state. If you submit this to the state.
I submit it to the state, and then the state auditor's office can audit, or we can choose an audit firm to audit.
Okay.
And so we usually choose an audit firm to audit.
Okay, so this is an outside audit firm?
Right, but now this is not audited. This is just what I have done.
Well,
So,
yeah, who came up with all the notes to the financial statement?
honestly, we get a template from the State Department of Ed, and we have to go through and fill all that out.
Okay.
So, yeah.
So the management's discussion and analysis, that's coming from you in the central office, correct?
Yes.
On the first page, the very first page of that, where it says financial highlights,
I'm calling.
I just want to make sure I kind of understand where it says we had 13 million, I've heard figures 18 million, Mrs. Kaufman said that when she said she left the board office, she said that in the construction meeting. And then I heard we were down about 13 million, and that says 13 million unrestricted net position. But if you go on down to the third comment, it said approximately 6 million of this total is available for spending at the board's discretion.
Right.
Would that be, when we go into these discussions on the building process, and I know we have the FEMA funds, and we're going to need to figure out what that pays for and what the board may be responsible for. I'm trying to get a grasp, and you don't have to answer me now, but I'd like for you to be at the table when we have that working session so that we know, because before they were talking about even if we had to build something and we're 27 million short, 30 million short, that there may be some monies available. And I also realize we need those reserves, 2 months expenses or whatever back. So I'm going to be very interested, and you can help me. I don't want to put you on the spot now, because but what that's telling me is we got about $6 million discretion. Is that correct?
Yes.
So it's not 18 million, it's not 13 million. It's
Right.
around 6
And
million.
go ahead. I just want to ask you, what do we normally use the discretionary funds for?
Well,
What
for
in the
example,
past?
of this $6 million that he is referring to, we have to, in this year's budget, we had to use about $2.4 million, that we carry over into the next year. We have this much ready, so we use that to balance the next year's budget. And so then we'll have to use probably that much again to balance the next year's budget. So, you look at $2.4 million out of $6 million, I mean, that's not going to take very long to be gone.
Yeah, and I totally agree with, I want you to make sure you understand where I'm coming from. I totally agree, you got to have those reserves to run the board. That's our first responsibility. And, the building money and the FEMA money, these funds, the capital fund and the special funds like that COVID money, they have to be spent in a certain way.
Right.
I'm sure that maybe certain things qualify where you can get it over to the general fund for instruction or whatever. I'm sure.
Right,
that-
right, like we were allowed to use that money on those
Because
teachers.
that was like $5 million that's not coming back in.
Right, yeah, we're close to the end of that. So, but I wanted to point out where you, because it is all confusing. The 13.7 that says it's unrestricted net position.
Correct.
That's from the district-wide statements. So that is what they're saying is net position.
Yeah, and that's your capital assets and everything.
Right,
I
that's
understand
after-
that.
right,
So
all
some of
the
those capital
investments.
assets aren't liquid. I
Right,
get
so
that.
that's confusing because there's a lot of different numbers on here.
Yes, there is.
You know,
That's the reason
net
I want to
position,
drill
fund
down in
balance.
what we really have
Right.
discretionary.
Right, and then this unreserved fund balance, this 6 million. If you, like I said, the other funds, the 61, 71, 51, 65, where those are negative,
Right.
they're coming against the 11 million that was in Fund
That's
11,
correct.
and that down to the 6.
But some of those negatives, that's accrual basis and timing.
Right.
You may get some of that.
Right,
Yeah.
right, so those should be fine, but now, Fund 51, we're not gonna know how that is gonna end up until we're done with all the construction. We hope we'll come out okay on that. And Fund 61, it's grant awards from the state, but it's also the money that we get reimbursed for the pods, the modular
Right.
units that the kids are in right now. So we're getting reimbursed through FEMA still for that. And so, there's a chance, I don't know how that'll end up. I mean, supposedly we'll be reimbursed for all that, but I don't know how long that'll go. We have to ask for extension. So there's a possibility.
I
we
noticed
might
that
make that
contract,
back up.
I noticed that contract runs out, but
Right.
it says it's a continuing contract.
Right.
If it does run out, but it runs out, I think, 25.
Well, and there's,
The whole contract for the pods.
and there's
What's
some,
the deadline now on that construction?
We've extended
It keeps changing. And
Cherry River's 25.
what part of 25?
Your fall 25, you should open.
We've extended those already.
Say that
We've
again?
extended those already. Those can be extended. Those can-
I know, but according, I think what Mr. Moose is asking, according to the construction meetings,
Yeah.
I asked that specific question, is the opening date, are we behind schedule, ahead schedule, whatever? And they said the opening date has not changed. Correct. And the opening date is the fall, so July, August of 25
Well,
for the Cherry River.
I don't know how they say that when they're about 3 to 6 months behind.
But I don't know if you were on that particular, because I know you've been gone, but I asked that specific question. Are we behind? He said, we're probably behind a little bit now, but nothing that can't be caught up, but the opening date has not
Well,
changed.
that's good.
And that's about the same date they're projecting for Lake,
Well, we're hoping.
right around that same time.
We're hoping to open them. So Kristen,
Oh, I'm sorry.
oh, no, it's okay.
money,
We got away, didn't we?
so where we thought we had $12 million extra, you're saying that we really only have 6?
Well, I'm saying, okay, if you look at Fund 11 and you look at unassigned fund balance on Fund 11, oh, no, it's gone, but we're still on that first page. So you could say, oh yeah, well, in the general fund, we have $11 million unassigned. And that's where, that's probably where the $12 million figure has come from. This is just a little bit different than it was last year. But then when you go across and you see that there's a negative in Fund 61, and there's a negative in Fund 71, and there's a negative in Fund 51, when you net all those, that's where we come down to the 6 million. So if we never got, if we were never reimbursed for these Fund 61 expenses, and we went if we overspent in Fund 71, we were never reimbursed those, we would have to make up for that out of our Fund 11 money. So, when you're looking at what's truly unassigned and really available, it's the 6 million. But we pretty much know in Fund 61 and 71, we're going to get those reimbursements. They just didn't come in on time to be included as revenue on here. So, that is possibly there, but it's not there right now. That would be there, maybe be available if everything worked out beautifully and we paid bills and we got the money the next day. It's a lot of a timing issue.
But if it's not there, we've got to make up all the
Right,
negative.
right.
If discretionary fund,
Right. In Fund 61, like I said, about the modulars, right now, we have a request in for the state because we were being reimbursed 90% by FEMA and 10% by the state. But apparently, that isn't necessarily a given. So we had to go back and ask the state if they would please continue to honor their 10%. So we haven't heard that back yet. But yeah, if they didn't, then in this Fund 61, there's going to be expense here that we don't get reimbursed. So, and then we're going to have to pick that up out of our Fund 11. So that's
Well, getting back to that first footnote where you have unrestricted net position of 13 million. I agree with that, and that's a little basis counting stuff. But some of those are not liquid assets, it's coming cash, so that's
Right.
why you come down to the 6.8
right.
million. So I saw that 13 million, but you really don't have that available to you.
Right.
But you're right, it's going to continue to change. You're going to have expenses go out and income come in. What that one statement does, it basically, and that's why you use accrual accounting, it tries to match what your position is on that date with really where you're at. So even though the fund cash position is interesting, and I like it, I'm not saying I don't, but because that's interesting, it's showing you one thing. But that accrual accounting, the date of June 30th, 2023, this is where you stood. And we haven't changed much since that date. Now, the cash may in and out have changed, but our net position is about 13 million, and our disposable of that net position, some of it's fixed assets, the difference. And
Right. If you'll notice on the fund statements, it doesn't list fixed assets, but it does on the district-wide.
yeah, that's
So
one.
that's why, that's a big difference. And then it shows a lot of deferred inflows, outflows for OPEB and retirement. And like I said, those could possibly be our obligations at some point down the road, but really that's just a big calculation that nobody really understands, and it's just something that we have to put on there, and it makes the whole rest of the thing look confusing because to us, those are not really real numbers.
Yeah, the unfunded liabilities through that, and yeah, they have tables in there, and I totally agree. I got
Yeah.
lost in that and didn't
Yeah.
fully understand. First of all, I'll say that the statements look really good as a new board member or whatever. I mean, they're in good shape. The ability to go into that working capital, we really have to understand before we would ever make a decision. Hopefully, we don't have to. Hopefully, the building comes in under budget, and we actually have money to do that. But right now, when we're making those decisions on what to build and listen to the architects and their estimates, I think we need to go with what we got left, which is around $97 million.
I think we don't want to dip into anything.
Yeah, and you're hoping that you'll create something, but she's right. You lost about 1.9 million last year. I mean, cash flow on that one statement. I mean, if you add all the funds together, and you have the money to absorb that in your carryover. And I think it's healthy. I think the board, the position's healthy. I'm not saying that at all, but yeah, when I read through that, since I've heard all these numbers, I actually got to see them.
It's healthy, but it's not as healthy as we were led to believe.
Yeah.
And well, it's confusing. I mean, there's just like a lot of different numbers here that.
But do you feel that one statement, Kristen, I'm not trying to put you on the spot, the third bullet point, approximately 6 million of this total amount is available spending at the board's discretion? Is that a fair statement?
Yes.
And if it's a fair statement, that's the number I think that we need to work around. I'm not saying that we can't borrow money, you can't do things like the architects were saying as far as leasing some of that. So I'm very interested in that $650 a foot that they're quoting that we can possibly do. You know, is FF&E in that? Is your furniture and fixtures and computer labs? I mean, those are some of the things we really need to nail down.
Well, and it's my understanding too, then, that any more that we pay to the architects is going to come out of our county money because we've already been reimbursed for architectural fees for design. So, I mean, that's something else.
Yes, it could be on us. I do understand there may be some monies that we can go back and ask for, and we could pay them out. It may not be ours. Under audit, they may be. So you'd have to definitely take that in calculation, have the money aside. And the state's left a small crack in the window that they're going to be approachable for some help. I don't know what that number's gonna be, but there is a small window there, so we'll see where it goes.
Well, I didn't want to go as long as Kevin. They all said, Kevin takes up all of our time, it takes forever, so I was trying to be fast, but
It's a really good report. I would urge anybody that's reading it to look at two things: your management discussion before the financials. The financials are what they are. And the footnotes, that's the reason I was interested in how the footnotes came about. The footnotes to that, and they're at length. Some of them in the pension plans and unfunded and all that, that'll put you to sleep.
yeah.
But there's some good information in your footnotes. Most financial statements, that's where you go to find out your health.
Yeah, and those are, the Department of Ed gives us this template of this is what you have to have, this is what you have to have, so you just,
Yeah,
we get
I
that,
get
we
that.
just have to fill in the blanks.
I was
So-
curious. But will there be a third-party auditor actually audit this?
Yes.
Okay,
yes,
so
there'll be an
these
audit.
statements right here will actually go to a third-party auditor?
Right, and actually, there's one thing that was not in these statements, that it was a GASB proclamation that was enacted that we didn't have time to
Put it in.
fully implement, so we're going to be talking about that at a conference that I'm going to this week. So these will change a little bit. It's mostly going to be on the district-wide and not the fund. And then, yes, the auditor will look at those. They usually come January, and then by March, they'll have to have the audit complete. And so then when the audit's done, then I'll bring this back to you again. We'll see.
When you say instruction expenditures about 60%, is that including the people that were added on, as you said, and we're going to have to pick up the difference?
Yes,
That includes them?
when you look through there and you have instruction and you have student support, that's across the board. That's out of all of the funds. That on that is looking at this. Yeah, that's across every fund. So that's
Right.
Fund 11, that's the grant awards, that's everything. That's everything that was coded to a line that was for instruction.
Well, is that pretty good, 60%? I mean, is that?
Well, I don't know that I'm really one to say that. I mean, you need your instruction, but you also need your support. So I don't know. I don't know if there's a number if they recommend that they want you to have in instruction, but yeah, when expenses are coded, we have a really long string of numbers when we code any expense, and so then there's a certain group of numbers that means instruction, and then there's a certain group of numbers that means transportation, and there's a certain group of numbers that means food service. So of all that, 60% of instruction, instruction's what we're doing, so I would think that that's
Probably
okay.
appropriate.
Yeah.
One thing I can recommend, it may not help you, it may not, because I know there's experience, but I know that the Memphis County Community Foundation got some grant money, and their grant money is to put on a grant writing with all the nonprofits in the county. I mean, they invited every nonprofit, it's free of charge. They're paying for the speaker to come in. It's basically on grant writing. And that's what a lot of this is getting those federal monies and state monies and grants to pay for things that you don't want to pay within your budget. I'll send, Chris, maybe you the email, but if somebody would want to attend, Sarah Lee, or somebody like that, Rights Grants or whatever, it's a free seminar that they put in. Well, might be advantageous to them, might not.
I think I have seen a lot of people in our schools, a lot of teachers take advantage of some of the grant opportunities available and apply.
And that was another one of my questions. I'm glad you brought that up. The other schools have their own money and they account for their own money, but that gets into this.
Right, that's in
Eventually,
that
our
Fund
audit
65.
statement will basically have all that in there.
Right.
And that's in your special.
Yes, that's in that Fund 65. So yeah,
65.
the schools did good. And then, even if this was a negative number, it's okay. I mean, they have their own school cash. It just happens to be that they brought in more cash last year than they spent. But they have,
And
they're
that's
all the schools
and
are.
that's a combination of all the schools in the
Right.
county, elementary, high school, middle school.
Right. And the schools get audited as well. And they had been audited by an outside firm, but now that we have Sarah, she's going to be doing the school audits. so we'll be doing those in-house from now on. But if they have had findings, they have been minimal, and really the biggest finding that any of the schools have ever had was that they haven't gotten a purchase order before they make a purchase. And that just sometimes.
I think the Steve was talking about the auditors. We've had independent auditors as long back as I can remember.
As long as I have
20-something
been
years.
here, we've had an independent auditor.
Yeah.
We don't have to opt for that, we can
And
have.
we've always done well with them too. I mean,
Mhm.
came out well.
Yes, yes. We've
But
always had a
things
really good
change,
audit.
things are changing, so.
I would have to think that ought to be fairly expensive. Do you know how much?
I don't know off the top of my head.
Okay, that's
I know that the school audits just by themselves, that was almost $14,000 just for the schools.
We approved that.
Well, I think I'm a little bit biased, but I really highly recommend an independent certified audit. Not only on the figures may be right, but they'll come in and do your internal controls. They give you that feedback, and it's a great asset or tool for you as the treasurer.
Well, and
Gives you
it's-
that level of protection to it.
Right, it's nice to be able to say that, somebody has looked at our records and we've done a good job and we haven't done anything wrong. And, I mean, it's kind of nice to be checked up on so that, people aren't wondering what's going on.
Well, thank you very much.
You're welcome. Oh, I'm not done. Okay, so, yeah, we had a couple of requests for trips. Richwood High School volleyball team going to Virginia. And that's to be paid for by the school, by county bus. And then VOTEC to Cedar Lakes, to be paid for, looks like with some of their school money, or maybe some grants that we have.
Yes, USA.
Yeah. And then they're going to be taking a rental car.
Okay. Do we have a motion to accept finance payment, current invoices, supplements, and transfers, the contracts, financial statements, and the two out-of-state requests, 1 and 2? Do we have a motion to accept those?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, motion made by Mr. Ferguson, seconded by Mr. Moose. All in favor? Excuse me. Okay, personnel.
Okay, on the first page of the personnel, the first person in the personnel is Alexandra King, and she's going to be employed as itinerant social worker at the Falter Shelter, and also serving our ALC program, and her effective date is 10/16/23. On the second page, about a quarter of the way down, Lawrence Doug Bales, employed in the position of head middle school wrestling coach at Somersville Middle School, effective 10/3/23. And under service, Catherine Hanks, employed in the position of LPN aide at Zeal Elementary School, effective date 10/3/23. Directly under that, Shauna Marsh, the effective date is 10/3/23 as an aide. On the next page, then we go down to, in red there, Taylor Bradford, as under resignations, parent coordinator at Glade Creek Elementary School. It's not GRE, it should be Glade Creek Elementary School, effective 10/3/23. And those are the only additions to our personnel. We're getting closer and closer to getting all these taken care of. Yeah, we didn't have to read that. No, that's the way they spelled it.
Well,
Good catch.
Okay, do we have a motion to accept the personnel agenda as presented?
Give them a session before.
It has nothing to do with personnel, just items.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, this is,
I so moved.
Mr. Moose makes a motion, do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Berry. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Reports, SESC, Mr. Ferguson.
Yes, before I start my report, I would like to compliment Panther Creek Elementary. I actually went over there Friday and read to a group of third graders and got a tour of the school. School looks great. Everybody was very friendly, just like you said. Very impressed with the kids. What surprised me as much as anything was the number in the class sizes. The class sizes, for a teacher were very manageable. And, as an outsider, I heard, 25 kids, then you have to hire an aide and do that. But most of those classes looked like they had 16 and 20 if they were in a bunch. But anyway, I want to comment. I think it was Regina Thomas, I think is the principal. Did a tremendous job. Yes, meeting of the SEC was at Fayetteville board meeting, and it started at 11 a.m. and ended around 12:15. Our superintendent, Terrence, he attended in person. I attended virtually. There was a vast discussion on the financial statement showing that the SESC is a profitable organization, co-op, has about $4.8 million in reserves. There was a great discussion on return on investment and dividends back to the participating counties. They approved a ratio of monies being paid for use of services by county in relationship to the dividend due to the county boards of education. Basically what they said, they were going to try to keep $4.2 billion in reserves. You can correct me, Terrence, if I'm wrong. But $4.2 in reserves, they were going to take any excess money and be a dividend back to the participating counties. But there would be a ratio based upon how our county uses it to figure out what your dividend does, which does make sense. The more you use it, the more, and they're kind of selling that. The more you use this, the more you'll get back. It's kind of a rebate. The Nicholas County Board of Education currently uses SESC for IT personnel, certain IT personnel, virtual instruction, the sub-calling system, and bus driver training. They continue to harp on using that virtual. If you lose the kids out of your brick and mortar, at least try to get them into your virtual program because of the dividends it can pay. They have a discussion on that every time. They discussed the policy and procedure manual being worked on. And, they'll have templates for you if you want to use it. It'll be a service, and they'll discuss those. They discussed the proximity learning and the West Virginia Virtual Home Academy. They discussed the advantages of the health clinics in the schools, and I think Terrence made reference to that before, where he had a couple of the schools he was trying to align with health clinics, and they discussed the advantages of having that in your schools. And they did discuss the continued development of the CTE programs in the middle school and high school, with the pilot program being at Midland Trail. That was discussed at the State Board Conference too, but they did discuss a lot about career technical education in West Virginia, and that Fayette County is doing a pilot program right now. And Mr. President, that's my report.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
So we lost Mr. Green, so we'll have to get update on Bright Risings hopefully next time. Items for future agendas. I guess one is work session October 12th. Is that
What was the
October?
time on that?
There's going to be an expulsion hearing at 8 o'clock.
That we need to be at.
Yeah.
And then the work session will follow it.
It's at 8 o'clock or 8:30?
8 o'clock.
8.
8 o'clock.
Mr. Stump's going to provide the donuts.
All right.
Does 8 o'clock on the 12th work for you, Mr. Moose?
Yes, sir.
it does work for Mr. Green because he told me that. Anything else for future agendas? One thing that I have, Mr. Tucker notified me that where we had voted to give the Faltus Shelter property to the Children's Home Society, we can't do that. They are if we donate property from the board, it has to go to a government entity.
It can't just be to a nonprofit.
So what he did say was that we could donate it to the Nicholas County Building Authority, Commission, Authority, whatever it is, and then they could donate it to them. So I have talked to Bill Dyer, and they're going to talk about that Wednesday at their meeting, and so that could be a future item for a future agenda, but we'll at least have to back up and we'll have to, because we voted to give it away. I guess, I don't know how
You
you
can
could
rescind it, you can rescind your action.
Yeah.
just rescind it.
Yep.
And we'll
It's
note
make an
the
agenda
minutes.
item
Yeah.
to do that, but you can go
We'll
on the
note the
agenda,
minutes
rescind
and
the action.
agenda
Okay.
that was on, so that we can go back and rescind.
And you rescind it based on the fact that you learned that you wanted to do it that way.
Okay,
That's
so,
everything.
so we'll rescind that on the future agenda, and then hopefully maybe also, if we'll have a discussion, maybe possible action on giving it to the building, but we'll have to wait on them first.
Yeah, the only legal question I have there, can we give it to the Nicholas County Building Commission with a reverter clause, and then they turn around and give it to Faltus Shelter, and what happens there? Or, I mean, that, we'll have to figure that part of it out.
Well, okay. All right, future meeting dates, of course, October 12th work session, and the expulsion hearing at 8 o'clock on that day, with the work session to follow that. And then Monday, October 16th is the next regular meeting.
Is the board going to set in on the expulsion hearing?
Yeah, you all, this is one that needs to come in front of the board. We've been handling most of them, all of them, in private.
I know we used to do them all,
Yeah.
which took
Forever. Yeah.
I'll make a motion that we go into executive session.
Okay? And so we have a motion to go into executive session. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay? All in favor of an executive session?
All right.